On a grey, rainy afternoon, two lost girls walk through the dense trees of a remote forest. With no map, no signal, they hear a snap and freeze. A leopard emerges from the brush, slow and silent, moving without a sound. Then suddenly, a white horse leaps in front of them, its hooves sinking into the mud. The horse faces the predator, no sound, no witnesses. In the distance, the girl's screams fade into the trees, and just when it all seems to freeze, something happens to the horse, but no one knows what. Love stories with animals? Then hit subscribe and don't miss a single one. Thanks for being with us. Now, back to the story. Whispers in the Pines. Chapter 1. Into the Wilderness. Emma. Spencer clutched her little sister's hand as they ventured deeper into the dense forest of Tennessee's Smoky Mountains. The late afternoon sunlight filtered through the canopy in slanted golden beams, creating dancing patterns on the forest floor that reminded 10-year-old Emma of the stained glass windows in their grandmother's church. 8-year-old Lily skipped alongside her, blissfully unaware of the dangers that lurked beyond the beaten path. "Do you really think we'll find treasure?" Lily asked, her voice bright with childish hope, twirling a strand of her honey-blonde hair around her finger. Emma hesitated, adjusting the small backpack that contained their meager supplies. 2 peanut butter sandwiches, a half-empty water bottle, and the crumpled map they'd found in their late grandfather's study. "Grandpa's map has to lead somewhere special," she replied, feigning confidence she didn't feel. "He always told us stories about the Cherokee gold hidden in these mountains." What Emma didn't say was that the treasure hunt was merely an excuse, a way to escape, even briefly, from the suffocating reality of their new life. 3 months ago, their parents had disappeared in a climbing accident, leaving the girls in the reluctant care of their Uncle Roy, a man who viewed the children as nothing more than an inconvenience, an unwanted responsibility thrust upon him. Uncle Roy's cabin sat at the edge of the forest, isolated and neglected, much like the girls themselves. The day they arrived, he had shown them to a small room with 2 narrow beds and declared gruffly, "Make yourselves at home. Just stay out of my way." The cabin smelled perpetually of whiskey and cigarettes, and the girls quickly learned that Roy's mood darkened with each empty bottle that accumulated in the trash. "I don't think Uncle Roy will even notice we're gone," Lily whispered, her previous enthusiasm dampening at the mention of their guardian. "He didn't even come home last night." Emma squeezed her sister's hand reassuringly. "That's why today is perfect for our adventure. We'll be back before dark and he'll never know." The forest thickened around them, the trees growing taller and more imposing. Emma tried to follow the faded trail marks on the map, but the winding paths looked different in reality than they did on paper. The sisters climbed over fallen logs, their sneakers sinking into the soft mulch of decomposing leaves. The earthy scent of moss and pine filled their nostrils, and distant birdsong accompanied their journey. "Look, Em! Deer tracks!" Lily pointed excitedly at the ground, momentarily forgetting their mission as she traced the hoof prints with her finger. Emma knelt beside her sister, examining the impressions in the damp soil. "They're fresh," she observed, noting the crisp edges. "The deer probably passed through here just this morning." As they continued their trek, Emma began to notice subtle changes in their surroundings. The friendly chirping of songbirds had given way to an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze. The sunlight, which had earlier dappled the forest floor with golden warmth, now struggled to penetrate the dense canopy above. A chill ran down Emma's spine as she realized they'd wandered much farther than intended. "Em, I'm tired," Lily complained, dragging her feet. "Can we rest for a bit?" Emma nodded, leading her sister to a fallen oak tree where they could sit. She pulled out the water bottle and one of the sandwiches, breaking it in half. As they ate in silence, Emma unfolded the map again, trying desperately to match their surroundings with the faded landmarks. With growing horror, she realized they had veered completely off course. The landmarks she'd been following, what she thought was Crippled Man's Ridge and the Twin Pines, didn't correspond to anything on the map. They were lost. "What's wrong?" Lily asked, detecting the change in her sister's demeanor. Emma forced a smile. "Nothing, just figuring out which way to go next." She couldn't bring herself to frighten her little sister with the truth. After their brief rest, they continued walking, Emma now searching desperately for any sign of a trail that might lead them back toward the cabin. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees growing denser, the underbrush more tangled. The air, once fresh and invigorating, now felt heavy and oppressive. The first fat droplets of rain caught them by surprise, pattering softly on the leaves above before finding their way down to where the girls stood. Within minutes, the gentle shower transformed into a downpour, soaking through their light jackets and plastering their hair to their faces. "I want to go home," Lily cried, tears mingling with the raindrops on her cheeks. Emma pulled her sister close, shielding her as best she could. "We need to find shelter," she shouted over the drumming of rain on leaves. "Come on!" They stumbled forward, the wet leaves treacherous underfoot. In the distance, Emma spotted what appeared to be a rocky outcropping, a potential haven from the storm. Gripping Lily's hand tightly, she led them toward it, fighting against the increasingly muddy terrain and the wind that whipped their soaked clothes against their skin. The outcropping turned out to be the entrance to a shallow cave, just deep enough to provide refuge from the rain. Emma helped Lily inside, both girls collapsing on the relatively dry stone floor, shivering and exhausted. "Are we going to die here?" Lily whispered, her voice small and frightened. Emma wrapped her arms around her sister's trembling shoulders. "No, of course not. We're just waiting out the storm. When it stops, we'll find our way home." But as the afternoon light began to fade, replaced by the encroaching gray of early evening, Emma's confidence wavered. She thought of Uncle Roy. Would he even notice they were missing? Would he care enough to search for them? The bitter realization that he might not send a wave of despair through her that was colder than the rain. Outside the cave, the forest transformed in the twilight. Shadows lengthened and merged, creating ominous shapes that shifted with the wind. Strange noises emerged from the darkness, rustlings, snappings, and occasionally distant howls that made both girls huddle closer together. "I'm scared," Lily admitted, her teeth chattering from cold and fear. "Me too," Emma confessed, abandoning her facade of bravery. "But we have each other. Remember what Mom used to say? The Spencer girls are stronger together." Lily nodded, a ghost of a smile flickering across her face at the memory of their mother's favorite saying. As night fully descended, the rain finally subsided, leaving behind a forest dripping with moisture and shrouded in mist. The temperature dropped further, and Emma knew they couldn't stay in the cave all night without risking hypothermia. They needed to build a fire, but everything was soaked. "We should try to gather some dry wood from under the trees," Emma suggested, though the prospect of venturing back into the dark forest terrified her. Just as she was about to step out of their rocky shelter, a sound froze her in place, a low, rumbling growl from somewhere in the darkness beyond the cave entrance. Both girls held their breath, eyes wide with fear. A pair of amber eyes gleamed in the darkness, catching what little moonlight penetrated the forest canopy. Emma instinctively pushed Lily behind her, backing deeper into the cave, though she knew there was nowhere to run. Into the silver-blue moonlight stepped a magnificent mountain lion, its tawny coat glistening with raindrops. The big cat's muscles rippled beneath its fur as it moved with predatory grace. It paused at the cave entrance, those intelligent amber eyes fixed on the terrified girls. Emma felt her heart hammering against her ribs. Mountain lions rarely attacked humans, but they were lost deep in the creature's territory, vulnerable and afraid. She remembered reading that you should make yourself look big and make loud noises if confronted by a mountain lion, but fear paralyzed her vocal cords. The cougar took another step forward, its massive paw silent on the stone floor of the cave. It was close enough now that Emma could see the whiskers twitching on its face, could smell the wild, musky scent of the predator. Lily whimpered behind her, and Emma reached back to squeeze her sister's hand, a final gesture of comfort. But instead of pouncing, the mountain lion simply sat, its tail swishing slowly back and forth across the cave floor. It tilted its head slightly, studying them with an almost curious expression. For a long moment, girl and beast regarded each other in the dim light of the cave. Then, inexplicably, the mountain lion turned and padded to the opposite side of the small cave, where it settled onto the ground, folding its powerful limbs beneath. Its eyes remained fixed on the girls, alert but somehow not threatening. Emma and Lily remained frozen, scarcely daring to breathe as minutes stretched into an hour. The mountain lion made no move toward them, seemingly content to share the shelter. Eventually, exhaustion began to override the girls' fear. I think it's just trying to stay dry too," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. Lily nodded, her eyes heavy with fatigue despite their precarious situation. Slowly, the sisters sank to the floor of the cave, huddled together for warmth, their backs pressed against the cold stone wall. The mountain lion observed them silently from its position, occasionally blinking its amber eyes in the darkness. Lily drifted into an uneasy sleep in her arms. Emma maintained her vigil, watching the predator that, for reasons she couldn't comprehend, had chosen not to harm them. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the secrets of the mountain, while inside the cave, an impossible truce had been established between the lost children and the wild guardian of the forest. Whispers in the Pines. Chapter 2: The Silent Guardian. Dawn arrived in gentle increments, painting the eastern sky with watercolor strokes of pink and gold. Emma awoke with a start, momentarily disoriented by the hard stone beneath her and the unfamiliar ceiling of rock above. Then the events of the previous day came rushing back, and she instinctively tightened her arm around Lily, who still slept soundly against her shoulder. Emma's gaze darted to the spot where the mountain lion had settled the night before, hoping to find it gone. Instead, the magnificent creature remained, its tawny form illuminated by the soft morning light that filtered into the cave. It was awake, amber eyes regarding her with that same inscrutable expression. "Lily," Emma whispered, gently shaking. Her sister. "Wake up. We need to go." Lily stirred, rubbing sleep from her eyes with small fists. When she noticed the mountain lion still present, she gasped and pressed closer to Emma. "It's still here," she whispered. "Why didn't it eat us?" Emma shook her head slightly. "I don't know, but we need to leave now while it's light." Both girls were stiff from the cold night spent on the hard cave floor. Their clothes, though no longer soaking, remained uncomfortably damp. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs. The remaining sandwich had been ruined by the rain, leaving them without food. With cautious movements, Emma helped Lily to her feet, never taking her eyes off the mountain lion. The big cat watched them intently, but made no move to approach. Slowly, the girls edged toward the cave entrance, expecting at any moment to provoke the predator into action. But the mountain lion merely rose to its feet, stretching its powerful limbs in a motion that reminded Emma oddly of their old tabby cat back home. It yawned, revealing gleaming white teeth that sent a shiver down Emma's spine, a stark reminder of what the creature was capable of. Once outside the cave, the girls paused, uncertain which direction to take. The forest looked different in the morning light, both more benign and more confusing. Without the map, which had disintegrated in the rain, they had no reference points to guide them. "Which way is home?" Lily asked, her voice small and uncertain. Emma squinted at the sun, trying to remember the basic orienteering skills their father had taught them on camping trips. "The cabin is east of the forest, so if the sun rises in the east, we should walk toward it." They had taken only a few hesitant steps when a sound behind them made them both turn. The mountain lion had emerged from the cave and was watching them, its tail swishing slowly back and forth. "Go away!" Emma said firmly, trying to sound brave despite her racing heart. Instead of retreating, the cougar began walking, not toward them but parallel to their path, keeping a distance of about 20 feet. It moved with fluid grace, hardly making a sound despite its size. "Is it following us?" Lily whispered, clutching Emma's hand tightly. "I think it's guiding us," Emma replied, the words sounding strange even as she spoke them. And indeed, the mountain lion seemed to be leading rather than stalking. When the girls hesitated at a fork in the path, the big cat would pause, looking back at them as if waiting. When they encountered a stream too wide to jump, the cougar led them to a narrower crossing upstream. By mid-morning, hunger and thirst had become pressing concerns. Lily's steps grew slower, her complaints more frequent. Emma spotted a blackberry bush with a few late-season berries and carefully picked the ripest ones for her sister. "Not enough for both of us," she said, pressing the berries into Lily's palm. "You eat them?" Lily tried to protest, but her hunger won out, and she popped the berries into her mouth, savoring the burst of tart sweetness. Emma's stomach growled in response, but she ignored it, focusing instead on their silent companion. The Bichiu mountain lion had settled on a sun-warmed rock nearby, watching them with half-lidded eyes. In the daylight, Emma could see details she'd missed in the darkness of the cave. The cat was female, her coat a rich golden brown with lighter fur around her face. A jagged scar ran across her left shoulder, evidence of some past struggle. Despite her fearsome appearance, there was something almost protective in the way she watched over them. "I'm going to call her Maple," Lily declared suddenly, "because her fur is the color of maple syrup." Emma started to object. Naming the wild animal seemed like a step too far into fantasy, but the name had already taken root. "Maple," she echoed softly, and the mountain lion's ears twitched as if in acknowledgement. As they continued their journey, the forest began to reveal its abundance to the observant eyes of the mountain lion. She would pause occasionally, her attention drawn to something the girls couldn't perceive. Once, she disappeared briefly into the underbrush, returning with a freshly caught rabbit dangling from her jaws. To the girls' astonishment, the cougar dropped the rabbit at their feet, before retreating to watch from a distance. Emma stared at the offering, understanding dawning slowly. "She's trying to feed us," she whispered, torn between gratitude and revulsion. Lily looked at the dead rabbit with wide eyes. Can we eat it?" Emma hesitated. Their situation was desperate, but the thought of preparing the rabbit was daunting. Their father had taught them basic survival skills during camping trips, including how to clean and cook fish, but this was different. "We would need to make a fire first," Emma said, looking around for dry kindling. The task proved easier than expected. The morning sun had dried the forest floor somewhat, and beneath fallen logs, they found enough dry wood and bark to start a small fire using the matches Emma had kept in a waterproof pocket of her backpack. With trembling hands, Emma prepared the rabbit as best she could, remembering her father's instructions from long ago fishing trips. The meat, roasted over their small fire, was tough and gamey, but to the hungry girls, it tasted like the finest meal they'd ever had. Throughout their makeshift breakfast, Maple maintained her distance, watching with those intelligent amber eyes. When they finished eating and continued their journey, she fell into step alongside them once more. The day warmed as the sun climbed higher and the girls removed their jackets, tying them around their waists. The forest hummed with life around them, birds calling from the treetops, squirrels chattering as they leapt from branch to branch, butterflies dancing in patches of sunlight. Under different circumstances, it might have been a pleasant hike. "Do you think anyone is looking for us?" Lily asked, breaking a long silence. The question had been haunting Emma since morning. "Miss Patterson might notice when we don't come to school," she said, referring to their kind-hearted teacher who had taken a special interest in the orphaned Spencer girls. "And maybe Mrs. Whitaker," she added, thinking of their elderly neighbor, who occasionally brought over homemade pies and checked on them when Uncle Roy was away. But deep down, Emma feared that no one would realize they were missing until it was too late. Uncle Roy often disappeared for days at a time, drinking and gambling in town, leaving the girls to fend for themselves. Their absence might go unnoticed for too long. As if sensing her dark thoughts, Maple moved closer, her presence oddly reassuring. Despite her wild nature, Emma found herself drawing strength from the mountain lion's quiet confidence. If this predator could navigate the vast wilderness with such certainty, perhaps they too would find their way. By mid-afternoon, the terrain began to change. The forest thinned slightly, and they started to encounter rock formations that Emma vaguely recognized from their journey the previous day. Hope flickered in her chest. Perhaps they were nearing the edge of the deep woods, approaching familiar territory. Their progress was halted abruptly when Lily stumbled, crying out in pain. She twisted her ankle on a hidden root, and when she tried to stand, she winced and sank back to the ground. "It hurts, Em," she whimpered, tears welling in her eyes. Emma knelt beside her sister, examining the ankle which was already beginning to swell. "You can't walk on this," she said, dismay coloring her voice. The thought of carrying Lily the rest of the way seemed impossible. Her own strength was flagging after a day of hiking on little food. A low rumble drew Emma's attention. Maple had approached closer than ever before, standing just a few feet away. The mountain lion's behavior shifted subtly. She paced back and forth, looking from the girls to something in the distance, then back again. "I think she wants us to follow her," Emma said, helping Lily to her feet. With Emma supporting her weight, Lily hopped on her good foot, wincing with each movement. Their progress slowed to a painful crawl. After less than a quarter mile, Lily was exhausted, tears streaming silently down her dirt-smudged face. Emma was nearly at the end of her own endurance, her arms aching from supporting her sister's weight. Maple circled them restlessly, her tail twitching with what seemed like impatience or concern. Then, remarkably, she approached Lily directly, stopping just inches away. The girls froze, uncertain of the cougar's intentions. With deliberate movements, Maple lowered her body to the ground beside Lily, her meaning unmistakable. I think she wants you to climb on her back," Emma whispered, hardly believing her own words. Lily looked from the mountain lion to her sister, equal parts terrified and tempted by the offer. "Can I?" "I don't know," Emma admitted. Everything she knew about wild animals warned against such intimate contact. Yet nothing about Maple's behavior had followed normal patterns. Making her decision, Lily cautiously placed her hand on the mountain lion's back. When Maple remained still, she carefully eased herself onto the cougar, gripping the thick fur at the scruff of her neck. To both girls' amazement, Maple stood steadily, bearing Lily's weight without difficulty. They continued their journey in this impossible procession, Maple carrying Lily with Emma walking beside them, one hand resting lightly on her sister's. leg for reassurance. The sight was so improbable that Emma wondered if exhaustion had driven her to hallucinate. As the afternoon waned toward evening, they crested a small rise, and Emma's heart leapt. Below them lay a clearing she recognized, the meadow that marked the eastern boundary of Uncle Roy's property. Beyond it, barely visible through the trees, was the weathered roof of the cabin. "We're almost home," she cried, a sob of relief catching in her throat. At the edge of the forest, Maple stopped. Lily slid carefully from the mountain lion's back, leaning on Emma for support once more. Both girls turned to face their unlikely savior. "Thank you," Lily said simply, reaching out to touch the cougar's face with gentle fingers. For a moment, Maple allowed the contact, her amber eyes fixed on the child with an expression that seemed almost tender. Then she backed away, melting into the shadows beneath the trees until only her eyes were visible, twin points of golden light in the gathering dusk. As they made their slow way across the meadow toward the cabin, Emma glanced back numerous times. But the mountain lion had vanished completely, leaving the girls to wonder if the extraordinary encounter had been real or merely a wilderness dream born of desperation and hope. The cabin appeared deserted, Uncle Roy's truck still absent from the rutted driveway. Emma felt a conflicting mixture of relief and abandonment, glad not to face his anger, yet hurt by the confirmation that he hadn't even noticed their absence. With difficulty, she helped Lily up the porch steps and through the unlocked door. The interior was exactly as they had left it, untouched, as if the world inside had held its breath while the forest had transformed them. Emma settled Lily on the threadbare couch, elevating her swollen ankle on a cushion. She found some ancient aspirin in the bathroom cabinet and coaxed her sister into swallowing it with a glass of water. Then she heated a can of soup on the rusty stove, their first proper meal since the rabbit that morning. As night descended fully, Emma stood at the kitchen window, staring out at the dark line of trees that marked the edge of the wilderness. Somewhere in that vast forest, Maple was moving silently through the shadows, hunting perhaps, or returning to the cave where their paths had crossed. "Do you think we'll ever see her again?" Lily asked softly from the couch. Emma turned to her sister, considering the question. "I don't know, but I think she'll be watching over us, even if we can't see her." Outside, a distant call echoed through the night. Not quite a roar, not quite a purr, but something in between. Both girls smiled, recognizing the sound for what it was, a reminder that they were not alone, that even in their neglect, they had found an unexpected guardian in the wilderness. Whispers in the Pines. Chapter 3. When Worlds Collide. Uncle Roy returned 3 days later, his truck rumbling up the dirt driveway, just as Emma was helping Lily limp to the school bus stop. He emerged from the vehicle unsteady on his feet, his eyes bloodshot, the smell of whiskey surrounding him like a cloud. "Where you girls think you're going?" he demanded, his voice gruff from cigarettes and late nights. Emma instinctively moved, in front of Lily, shielding her sister. "School. Lily hurt her ankle, but she feels better today." Roy's gaze narrowed as he took in Lily's swollen ankle and the makeshift bandage Emma had fashioned from an old t-shirt. "What happened to you?" "I fell," Lily whispered, her eyes downcast. A mixture of suspicion and indifference crossed Roy's face. "Well, I guess school's better than having you underfoot all day." He turned away, stumbling slightly as he headed toward the cabin. "Don't expect dinner when you get back. I'm heading out again tonight." Emma waited until he disappeared inside before exhaling slowly. "Come on," she said to Lily. "The bus will be here soon." The yellow school bus arrived with a squeal of brakes, and the driver, Mr. Jenkins, raised his eyebrows at the sight of Lily's bandaged ankle. "You okay there, kiddo?" he asked as he helped her climb the steps. Just a little accident, Emma explained quickly, following her sister onto the bus. The other children barely looked up as the Spencer girls made their way to their usual seat, near the back. They had become used to the quiet sisters who kept to themselves, those poor, orphaned girls who lived with their strange uncle on the edge of the forest. Miss Patterson, however, noticed immediately when they entered the classroom. The young teacher's concerned gaze took in Lily's injured ankle, the dark circles under both girls' eyes, and their slightly disheveled appearance. "Emma, Lily, may I speak with you at recess?" she asked quietly as they took their seats. Emma nodded, her stomach tightening with anxiety. Miss Patterson was one of the few adults who had shown genuine concern for their welfare since their parents' disappearance. The thought of lying to her felt wrong, yet Emma couldn't imagine explaining what had really happened in the forest. The morning passed in a blur of math problems and spelling tests. Emma found it hard to concentrate, her mind constantly drifting. Back to the forest, to Maple's amber eyes and protective presence. Beside her, Lily seemed equally distracted, wincing occasionally when she shifted her injured ankle. When the recess bell rang, the other children rushed for the door, eager for fresh air and freedom. Emma and Lily remained seated, exchanging nervous glances as Miss Patterson approached their desks. "Girls," she began, pulling up a chair to sit at their level, "I've been worried. You were absent for 2 days, and now Lily's injured. Is everything all right at home?" Emma hesitated, weighing her words carefully. "Uncle Roy was away for a few days," she admitted. "We had an accident while exploring." Miss Patterson's expression softened with concern. "Exploring where, Emma?" "The forest behind our house," Lily piped up before Emma could stop her. "We got lost, but Maple helped us find our way home." "Maple?" Miss Patterson's brow furrowed in confusion. "Our neighbor's dog," Emma interjected quickly, shooting a warning glance at Lily. She found us and led us back." Miss Patterson studied them for a long moment, her eyes reflecting doubt. "Emma, Lily, you know you can tell me if something's wrong, don't you? If you need help with anything at all." The sincerity in her voice nearly broke Emma's resolve. How simple it would be to tell this kind woman everything about Uncle Roy's neglect, about their desperate adventure in the forest, about the mountain lion who had inexplicably become their guardian. But fear held her tongue. What if telling meant being separated from Lily? What if it meant being sent to live with strangers, far from the mountains and forests that, despite everything, had become home? "We're okay, Miss Patterson," Emma said finally. "Really?" The teacher sighed softly, clearly unconvinced but unwilling to push further. "All right, but I want you to know my door is always open, and I'd like to come by your house sometime, meet your uncle properly. Would that be okay?" Emma nodded, though her heart raced at the thought of Miss Patterson encountering Uncle Roy in one of his darker moods. "Good. Now, Lily, let me take a look at that ankle." After examining Lily's injury and replacing the makeshift bandage with a proper one from the nurse's office, Miss Patterson let them spend the remainder of recess inside, sharing her lunch with them when she noticed their meager provisions. Throughout the school day, Emma felt Miss Patterson's concerned gaze following them. It was both comforting and unsettling to be seen, truly seen, after months of existing in the shadows of adult indifference. When the final bell rang, Emma helped Lily gather her things, bracing herself for the long walk home. To their surprise, Miss Patterson approached with car keys in hand. "I thought I'd give you girls a ride today," she said, her tone casual though her eyes were watchful. "It's on my way home anyway." The ride passed mostly in silence, with Lily occasionally pointing out landmarks to their teacher, the old covered bridge, the general store, where they sometimes bought penny candy, the creek where they had once caught tadpoles with their father. As they approached the turnoff to Uncle Roy's property, Emma's anxiety returned full force. "You can drop us at the end of the driveway," she suggested, hoping to prevent Miss Patterson from seeing the neglected state of the cabin. But the teacher shook her head gently. "I'd like to speak with your uncle, make sure he knows about Lily's ankle." Emma's heart sank as Miss Patterson's sedan bumped down the rutted driveway. Through the windshield, she could see Uncle Roy's truck was already gone, though they had left him sleeping that morning. Relief mingled with embarrassment as she realized Miss Patterson would see the shabby condition of their home, but at least she wouldn't meet Roy. "Looks like he's not home," Emma said quickly as they pulled up to the cabin. Miss Patterson frowned, taking in the peeling paint, the sagging porch steps, the general air of disrepair. "Does he leave you alone often?" Emma avoided her gaze. "Sometimes. But we're okay by ourselves. I can cook and everything." "I see." Miss Patterson's voice was carefully neutral, but Emma could sense her disapproval. "Why don't I come in for a few minutes, help you get settled?" Inside, the cabin was cold and unwelcoming. Empty beer cans littered the coffee table, and dirty dishes were piled in the sink. Emma felt a flush of shame as she watched Miss Patterson take it all in, her expression increasingly troubled. "Girls, I have to ask, are you getting enough to eat here? Is your uncle taking proper care of you?" Lily looked to Emma, her young face conflicted. Emma hesitated, caught between truth and fear. Before she could answer, a movement outside the kitchen window caught her attention. At the edge of the forest, partially concealed by underbrush, a familiar tawny form was visible, Maple, watching the cabin with alert amber eyes. "We manage okay," Emma said finally, turning back to Miss Patterson. "Uncle Roy works a lot." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but the alternative seemed too frightening to contemplate. Miss Patterson clearly wasn't convinced, but she didn't press further. Instead, she went to the kitchen and began washing the dirty dishes. "Let me help you tidy up a bit," she said, rolling up her sleeves. For the next hour, teacher and students worked together to bring some order to the chaotic cabin. Miss Patterson swept the floors while Emma wiped down surfaces, and Lily, despite her ankle, sorted laundry into piles. The simple act of cleaning transformed the space, making it feel more like a home and less like a place of neglect. When they finished, Miss Patterson prepared a simple dinner from the meager contents of the refrigerator, grilled cheese sandwiches and canned tomato soup. As they ate at the freshly wiped kitchen table, she asked gentle questions about their life before coming to live with Uncle Roy. "Mom taught science at the high school in Knoxville," Lily shared, animated by the rare opportunity to speak about their parents. "And Dad was a forest ranger. He knew everything about trees and animals." "He would have known what to do in the forest," Emma added softly, "when we got lost." Miss Patterson's expression shifted subtly. "You must miss them very much." Both girls nodded, unexpected tears springing to their eyes. "Would you like to tell me what really happened when you got lost?" Miss Patterson asked gently. The truth, this time. Emma exchanged a glance with Lily, seeing the same longing for release, for the unburdening that comes with sharing a secret too heavy to carry alone. Slowly, haltingly at first, then with increasing confidence, Emma began to tell their story. The treasure map, the sudden storm, the cave where they had sought shelter. "And then we saw eyes in the dark," she continued, watching Miss Patterson's face carefully for signs of disbelief. "It was a mountain lion, but instead of hurting us, she protected us." "Maple," Lily interjected solemnly. "That's what I named her." To Emma's surprise, Miss Patterson didn't dismiss their story or laugh it off as childish imagination. Instead, she listened intently, her expression thoughtful. Mountain lions are native to these mountains, she said when Emma finished. They're usually solitary and avoid humans. What you're describing is unusual. But you believe us? Lily asked. Hopefully, Miss Patterson smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached her eyes. I believe something extraordinary happened to you in those woods, and I believe you've been very brave, both of you. As darkness fell, Miss Patterson reluctantly prepared to leave, her concern for the girls obvious. I'll come back tomorrow to check on you, she promised, and we need to have a serious talk with your uncle about proper supervision. After she drove away, Emma stood on the porch, watching the forest line. In the gathering dusk, she could just make out the silhouette of the mountain lion, still maintaining her silent vigil. She's still there, Lily whispered, joining her sister. Emma nodded. She's watching over us. The girls slept more soundly that night than they had in months, comforted by both Miss Patterson's kindness and Maple's distant but steadfast presence. The following day at school, Emma noticed Miss Patterson in deep conversation with the principal, Mr. Harding, both of them glancing frequently in the Spencer girls' direction. A sense of foreboding settled over her. Adults talking about them never seemed to lead to anything good. After school, Miss Patterson drove them home again, her manner more determined than the previous day. I'd like to wait and speak with your uncle, she said firmly as they pulled up to the cabin. To Emma's dismay, Uncle Roy's truck was parked haphazardly in the yard, one wheel up on the grass. Inside, they found him sprawled on the couch, a half-empty bottle on the floor beside him. He struggled to a sitting position as they entered, his bleary gaze focusing with difficulty on Miss Patterson. "Who are you?" he demanded, his words slightly slurred. "Jessica Patterson. I'm Emma and Lily's teacher." Her voice was polite but cool. "Mr. Spencer, I'm concerned about the girls. They were lost in the forest for 2 days, and you didn't even report them missing." Roy's face darkened. "What happens in my house is my business, lady. When it affects my students' welfare, it becomes my business too," Miss Patterson replied, standing her ground. "These girls deserve better than this." The confrontation that followed was ugly and brief. Roy's temper flared, his voice rising to a shout as he ordered Miss Patterson to leave his property. The teacher remained calm but firm, informing him that she would be reporting her concerns to the proper authorities. "You do that," Roy snarled. "Nobody's going to take the word of some school teacher over family." After Miss Patterson left, promising the terrified girls that she would return soon, Roy's anger turned on them. "What lies have you been telling?" he demanded, looming over them. "No lies," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady despite her fear. "We just told her we got lost." Roy paced the small living room, muttering about interfering women and ungrateful brats. Finally, he grabbed his keys from the table. "I'm going out. Don't expect me back tonight." After he slammed out the debris, the girls huddled together on the couch, listening to his truck roar down the driveway and fade into the distance. "What's going to happen to us?" Lily asked, her voice small with fear. Emma stroked her sister's hair, trying to project a confidence she didn't feel. "I don't know, but whatever happens, we'll stay together, I promise." As darkness settled over the cabin, Emma made a simple dinner from the food Miss Patterson had brought. They ate in silence, the weight of uncertainty heavy between them. Later, as they prepared for bed, a sound outside caught their attention, a scratching at the back door, followed by a low, rumbling sound that was neither growl nor purr, but something in between. Emma's heart leapt. "Maple?" Cautiously, she approached the door, Lily close behind her. When she opened it, the mountain lion was standing on the back porch, her golden eyes gleaming in the light spilling from the kitchen. "She came to our house," Lily whispered in awe. Maple padded forward, rubbing her massive head against Lily's outstretched hand in a gesture so reminiscent of a domestic cat that both girls giggled despite their fears. The mountain lion moved with surprising delicacy in the small kitchen, her tawny coat almost glowing in the artificial light. For the next hour, the strange trio shared the space in comfortable silence. Two orphaned girls and a wild predator, who had somehow transcended the natural boundaries between their worlds. Maple eventually settled on the threadbare rug, watching with half-lidded eyes as the girls prepared for bed. When they finally retired to their small bedroom, leaving the kitchen door slightly ajar, Maple followed, curling her large body at the foot of Lily's bed like an oversized house cat. "Is she going to stay?" Lily asked, her voice filled with wonder. Emma smiled, feeling a strange sense of peace despite the uncertainty of their future. "I think she's making sure we're safe." Throughout the night, Emma woke several times, each time finding the mountain lion still present, her amber eyes reflecting the moonlight filtering through the thin curtains. It should have been terrifying to share their bedroom with a wild predator, but instead, Emma felt an overwhelming sense of security. Outside, the wind whispered through the pines, carrying the secrets of the mountains. Inside, an impossible bond had formed, a wild guardian watching over lost children, a connection that transcended the normal boundaries between wilderness and civilization. As dawn approached, Emma drifted into a deeper sleep, her dreams filled with amber eyes and sunlit forests, and a sense that whatever challenges the coming day might bring, they would not face them alone. Whispers in the Pines. Chapter 4. The Heart of the Wild. The next morning dawned with a clarity that seemed to illuminate more than just the physical world. Emma woke to find Maple gone, the only evidence of her nocturnal visit, a few tawny hairs on the bedroom rug, and a lingering musky scent that reminded the girls they hadn't dreamed the encounter. "Do you think she'll come back?" Lily asked as they dressed for school, her voice hopeful. Emma paused, looking out the window toward the tree line. "I think she's always watching, even when we can't see her." The school day passed in a haze of anticipation and dread. Emma noticed Miss Patterson in another intense conversation with Principal Harding, their expressions grave. Something was happening, decisions were being made about their future, and the girls were powerless to influence the outcome. At the final bell, instead of boarding the bus, they were directed to Principal Harding's office. Miss Patterson was waiting, along with a woman they didn't recognize, middle-aged with kind eyes and a clipboard. "Emma, Lily," Miss Patterson began gently. "This is Mrs. Brennan from Child Protective Services. She needs to ask you some questions about your home life." The interview that followed was gentle but thorough. Mrs. Brennan asked about Uncle Roy's absences, about food in the house, about whether the girls ever felt unsafe. Emma answered cautiously, protective instincts warring with the growing realization that they couldn't continue as they had been. "What will happen to us?" she finally asked, the question that had been haunting her for days. Mrs. Brennan's expression softened. "For now, we'd like to place you with a temporary foster family while we assess the situation with your uncle. I understand you have a neighbor, Mrs. Whitaker. She's expressed willingness to take you in temporarily." Relief flooded through Emma. Mrs. Whitaker was kind and grandmotherly, her small house always smelling of baked goods. More importantly, she lived just down the road. They would still be near the forest, near Maple. "Can we go home first to get our things?" Emma asked, thinking of the few precious mementos of their parents they kept in their room. Mrs. Brennan hesitated. "I'm afraid your uncle returned home earlier today. The situation became confrontational when officers went to speak with him. "It's best if we collect your belongings later, when things have calmed down." A cold knot formed in Emma's stomach. Is he angry? What did he do? "He's been asked to leave the property temporarily," Mrs. Brennan said carefully. "There are some concerns about his behavior." The drive to Mrs. Whitaker's cottage passed in tense silence. Lily leaned against Emma, seeking comfort as always from her older sister, while Emma stared out the window at the familiar landscape, wondering what new chapter was beginning in their tumultuous young lives. Mrs. Whitaker welcomed them with open arms and freshly baked cookies, her wrinkled face creased with genuine concern. "You poor dears," she clucked, ushering them into her cozy living room. "I've been worried about you for months. Should have spoken up sooner, I suppose." That evening, settled in the small guest room that smelled pleasantly of lavender, Emma tried to reassure Lily that everything would be all right, but her own heart was heavy with uncertainty. Would Uncle Roy fight to keep them, not out of love, but out of pride? Would they be sent away, farther from the mountains that had become their sanctuary? And what of Maple, their wild guardian who had risked everything to protect them? "I want to see Maple," Lily whispered, as Emma tucked her into the unfamiliar. "Ebed." "I know," Emma sighed, "but we can't go back to the forest alone, not after everything that's happened." "She'll find us," Lily said with childish certainty. "She always does." The next day was Saturday, and Mrs. Whitaker suggested a picnic by the creek that ran along the edge of her property. "You girls need some fresh air and sunshine," she declared, packing a wicker basket with sandwiches and lemonade. The spot she chose was peaceful, a grassy bank beside the burbling creek, shaded by ancient sycamores whose leaves rustled gently. In the breeze, Mrs. Whitaker spread a checkered blanket on the ground and settled herself with a book, giving the girls freedom to explore within sight. "Don't go near the deep water," she cautioned, "and stay where I can see you." Emma and Lily wandered along the creek bank, collecting interesting pebbles and watching minnows dart in the clear water. The forest began just beyond the creek, a tantalizing wall of green that called to them like an old friend. "Do you think she's out there?" Lily asked, gazing longingly toward the trees. Emma nodded, watching over us, like always. If summoned by their thoughts, a movement at the forest edge caught their attention. There, half hidden by the underbrush, stood Maple. The mountain lion's amber eyes were fixed on the girls, her tawny coat dappled with sunlight filtering through the canopy. "Maple!" Lily gasped, taking an instinctive step forward. "Shh!" Emma cautioned, glancing back at Mrs. Whitaker, who was dozing in the warm afternoon sun. "Don't draw attention." The mountain lion held their gaze for a long moment, then turned and disappeared into the forest. But instead of vanishing completely, she paused just within the tree line, looking back at them expectantly. "She wants us to follow her," Lily whispered. Emma hesitated, torn between the ingrained obedience to adult rules and the inexplicable bond they shared with the wild creature. "We can't," she said reluctantly. "Mrs. Whitaker would worry." But even as she spoke, Maple reappeared, something clutched gently in her powerful jaws. The mountain lion approached the creek, placed her burden on the ground, then retreated to a safe distance. Curiosity overwhelming caution, the girls waded across the shallow creek. There on the ground lay a small leather pouch, worn and weathered, its surface scratched by the mountain lion's teeth. "What is it?" Lily wondered aloud as Emma carefully picked it up. The pouch was tied with a frayed cord, which Emma gently loosened. Inside was a tarnished silver locket on a delicate chain and a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. With trembling fingers, Emma opened the locket. Inside were two tiny photographs, a man and a woman, their features barely discernible. through the tarnish and age. "It's Mom and Dad," Lily exclaimed, peering at the tiny images. Emma shook her head slowly. "No, these are too old. This locket must have belonged to someone else." She unfolded the paper next, revealing a hand-drawn map similar to the one that had led them into the forest days before. But this map showed more detail: landmarks, trails, and a location marked with an X deep in the heart of the forest. "It's another treasure map," Lily breathed, excitement coloring her voice. Emma studied the map, recognition dawning. "No, it's the same map, the original. The one we found in Grandpa's study must have been a copy." Her mind raced as she pieced together the puzzle. Their grandfather had been an amateur historian, fascinated by local legends and tales of Cherokee gold hidden in the mountains. He had died when the girls were very young, leaving behind a trove of documents and maps that their father had inherited. "Where did you find this?" Emma asked, looking up at Maple, who watched them intently from the edge of the forest. As if in answer, the mountain lion turned and took a few steps into the woods, then paused, looking back at them. "She wants us to follow her again," Lily said. Emma hesitated, glancing back at Mrs. Whitaker, still dozing peacefully in the sun. The responsible thing would be to wake her, to share their discovery, to wait for adult guidance. But something deeper pulled at her, an instinct as primal as the bond they shared with the mountain lion. "We'll go just a little way," she decided, tucking the pouch into her pocket, "just to see what she wants to show us." Hand in hand, the Spencer girls waded back across the creek and followed Maple into the forest. The mountain lion led them at a measured pace, frequently looking back to ensure they were following. Unlike their previous journey, this one seemed purposeful, directed. Maple didn't wander but moved with certainty, leading them along what appeared to be a game trail through the dense undergrowth. Emma kept careful track of their route, noting landmarks that would guide them back to the creek. After about 15 minutes of walking, they entered a clearing dominated by an enormous oak tree, its sprawling branches creating a cathedral-like canopy overhead. At the base of the tree, half buried in years of leaf litter and earth, was what appeared to be a small stone structure, perhaps once a cabin or shelter, now reduced to crumbling walls and a partial foundation. Maple padded across the clearing to the ruins, where she sat expectantly, watching the girls with those intelligent amber eyes. "What is this place?" Lily wondered aloud, her voice hushed in the stillness of the clearing. Emma approached the ruins cautiously. Among the tumbled stones, she spotted a small opening, perhaps once a cellar or storage area beneath the cabin. Maple rose and moved to this opening, looking from it to the girls and back again. "She wants us to look inside," Emma realized. Kneeling beside the opening, Emma peered into the darkness. As her eyes adjusted, she could make out the glint of metal among the debris. Reaching in carefully, her fingers closed around something solid and cylindrical, a metal container about the size of a coffee can, its surface rusted but intact. With Lily watching wide-eyed, Emma pulled the container from its hiding place and carefully pried open the lid. Inside, nestled in what looked like decayed fabric, were several items: a leather-bound journal, a small canvas pouch that clinked with the unmistakable sound of coins, and a faded photograph. Emma lifted out the photograph first. It showed a family, a man, a woman, and a small boy, standing in front of a cabin that might once have been the very structure whose ruins they now explored. The man was holding what appeared to be a rifle, the woman a baby, and all were smiling at the camera with a happiness that transcended time. "Look at the back," Lily suggested. Emma turned the photograph over. Written in faded ink were the words, "Spencer Homestead, 1892, Thomas, Elizabeth, and baby James." "Spencer," Emma breathed. These were our ancestors. She opened the journal next, its brittle pages covered in elegant flowing script. The first entry was dated June 3rd, 1890. We have completed our new home in the mountains. Elizabeth says it is too remote, but I find peace here among the ancient trees. The Cherokee told tales of gold hidden in these hills, but I have found something far more valuable, a place where a man can live freely, guided only by his conscience and the rhythms of the natural world. Emma read a few more entries aloud. To Lily, piecing together the story of Thomas Spencer, their great-great-grandfather, who had settled in these mountains over a century ago. He wrote of struggles and joys, of harsh winters and bountiful harvests, of friendship with Cherokee neighbors and conflicts with those who sought to exploit the land. Listen to this, Emma said, reaching the final entry. Dated November 15th, 1895. The mining company men came again today with their papers and promises. They speak of progress and prosperity, but their eyes betray their true intent, greed. They covet what lies beneath this land, care nothing for its soul. I have hidden our savings and this journal where they will not find them. If fate is kind, someday my descendants will discover them and know that this mountain has always been the Spencer family's true home and guardian. Tears welled in Emma's eyes as she finished reading. This was our family's land, she whispered, before Uncle Roy, before everyone. Lily reached into the can and carefully emptied the canvas pouch into her palm. Gold coins gleamed in the dappled sunlight, not a fortune by modern standards, but a tangible link to their past. That's why Maple brought us here, Lily said, looking at the mountain lion with newfound understanding. She wanted us to know we belong here. Emma nodded slowly, the pieces falling into place. The forest is protecting us, just like it protected our family all those years ago. They spent another hour exploring the ruins, finding additional artifacts that connected them to their ancestry. A tarnished button, a rusted tool, fragments of pottery that had once graced a family table. Each discovery strengthened their sense of belonging, of connection to this land that had seemed so alien when they first arrived at Uncle Roy's cabin. As the afternoon light began to wane, Emma reluctantly suggested they return to the creek. Mrs. Whitaker will be worried if she wakes up and finds us gone. Gathering their treasures, they followed Maple back through the forest. The mountain lion led them unerringly to the creek where they had crossed earlier. Mrs. Whitaker was indeed awake, her expression frantic as she called their names. "We need to go back," Emma said to Lily. "But we'll return. This place is part of us now." Before stepping out of the forest, Emma turned to Maple. "Thank you," she whispered, reaching out to touch the mountain lion's massive head. Maple allowed the contact, leaning briefly into Emma's hand in a gesture of affection that belied her wild nature. Then she turned and melted into the forest. Shadows, a guardian returning to her watch. The girls waded across the creek to where Mrs. Whitaker was frantically searching the area. Her relief at seeing them was quickly replaced by scolding concern. "Where have you been? I've been worried sick." "We were exploring," Emma explained, deciding in that moment to share their discovery. "And we found something important." Back at the cottage, the girls spread their treasures on the kitchen table. The locket, the journal, the coins, the photograph. Mrs. Whitaker listened with growing astonishment as they recounted their discovery of the Spencer homestead, carefully, omitting any mention of Maple's role in leading them there. "My stars," the elderly woman breathed when they finished. "This is your heritage, girls. Your grandfather used to tell stories about the original Spencer homestead, but everyone thought it was just family legend." "It's real," Emma said firmly, "and it's where we belong." That evening, as word of their discovery spread, several people gathered at Mrs. Whitaker's cottage. Miss Patterson, Mrs. Brennan from Child Protective Services, and Sheriff Morgan, a tall, stern man with surprisingly gentle eyes. The adults examined the artifacts with a mixture of wonder and scholarly interest. Sheriff Morgan, who apparently had a passion for local history, carefully turned the pages of the journal. "This is a significant historical find," he declared. "The original Spencer land grant would have covered several hundred acres, including what's now the National Forest and, yes, the parcel where Roy's cabin stands." "What does this mean for the girls?" Miss Patterson asked, voicing the question that hung in the air. Mrs. Brennan looked thoughtful. "Well, it certainly complicates the custody situation. If we can establish that this land has been in their family for generations and that their grandfather left it specifically to them." "Roy was just supposed to be their guardian, not take ownership," Mrs. Whitaker interjected. "That's what their father always said." A plan began to form, with the adults discussing legal strategies and historical documentation while the girls listened, hope blossoming in their hearts. Sheriff Morgan promised to investigate the original land deeds, while Mrs. Brennan would petition the court for a formal review of the guardianship arrangement. Late that night, after everyone had gone and the girls were preparing for bed in Mrs. Whitaker's guest room, Lily went to the window and gazed out at the dark line of trees in the distance. "Do you think Maple is out there watching?" she asked softly. Emma joined her at the window. "I know she is. She'll always be watching over us." The following days brought a whirlwind of activity. Sheriff Morgan confirmed that the original Spencer land grant was still valid, with ownership passing to the girls upon their father's death. Uncle Roy had never legally owned the property, merely occupied it as their guardian. When confronted with this information and the mounting evidence of his neglect, Roy made a surprisingly practical decision. In exchange for avoiding criminal charges for neglect, he agreed to relinquish guardianship and leave the property entirely. He was never much for fighting lost causes, Sheriff Morgan explained to the girls, especially when there's no money in it for him. The question of who would become their new guardian was answered when Miss Patterson stepped forward, offering to move into the Spencer property and care for the girls there. "This is their home, their heritage," she explained to the court. "They shouldn't be uprooted again." By early summer, the transformation was complete. The old cabin had been renovated, unsafe structures repaired, fresh paint applied, new furniture installed. Miss Patterson had moved into what had been Uncle Roy's room, bringing warmth and stability to what had once been a place of neglect. The Forest homestead ruins had been properly excavated by Historical Society volunteers, revealing additional artifacts and confirming the site's historical significance. A small memorial plaque was installed, commemorating the original Spencer settlers and their contribution to local history. But the most remarkable transformation was in the girls themselves. The trauma of their parents' loss would never completely heal, but they had found something profound in the wilderness, a connection to their past, a sense of belonging, and an understanding that sometimes protection comes from the most unexpected sources. On a warm evening in June, Emma and Lily sat on the porch steps, watching the fireflies emerge from the darkening forest. Miss Patterson was inside, preparing dinner, the sounds and smells of proper home cooking wafting through the open windows. "Do you think we'll see her tonight?" Lily asked, scanning the tree line eagerly. Emma smiled. "If she wants us to." Since their return to the cabin, Maple had maintained a respectful distance. Sometimes they would glimpse her at the forest edge, a tawny shadow watching over them. Occasionally, she would leave small gifts on the porch, a freshly caught rabbit, a cluster of turkey feathers, once even a perfect wildflower, its stem still moist from where it had been carefully bitten. Miss Patterson had been understandably skeptical of their mountain lion guardian story until the morning she'd found paw prints larger than her hand circling the cabin and leading back to the forest. Just because something seems impossible doesn't mean it isn't true, she had conceded, making the girls promise to always maintain a respectful distance from their wild protector. The distant rumble of a vehicle drew their attention to the driveway. Sheriff Morgan's patrol car appeared, followed by Mrs. Whitaker's ancient station wagon. The two had become regular visitors, forming with Miss Patterson a kind of extended family for the orphaned girls. "Got some news for you," Sheriff Morgan announced as he climbed out of his car. The county's officially designated the old homestead site as a historical landmark. The whole area is protected now. No development, no logging, no hunting. "The forest is safe," Lily breathed, her face lighting up with joy. "As safe as we can make it," the sheriff agreed with a smile. After dinner, the adults lingered over coffee while Emma and Lily slipped outside. The night was warm and still, the moon casting a silver glow over the yard and the forest beyond. "Let's go to the big rock," Lily suggested, referring to a flat boulder at the edge of the clearing, a perfect spot for stargazing. They settled onto the sun-warmed stone, leaning back to watch the stars emerging one by one in the deepening blue of the sky. A rustle in the underbrush alerted them to a presence, Maple, emerging from the shadows to sit a respectful distance away, her amber eyes gleaming in the moonlight. "Hello, friend," Emma said softly. The mountain lion blinked slowly, a gesture that seemed almost like acknowledgement. For a long while, they simply existed together in the peaceful night, two human children and a wild predator, connected by an understanding that transcended the normal boundaries between their worlds. "I think Mom and Dad would be happy we found this place," Lily said eventually, her voice drowsy with contentment. Emma nodded, feeling a sense of completion that had eluded her since the day their parents left for their final climb. "They always wanted us to know our family history, and now we do." As if agreeing, Maple rose and padded closer, her movements fluid and graceful in the moonlight. She paused just feet away from the girls, closer than she'd come since their days, lost in the forest. For a breathless moment, amber eyes met human ones in silent communion. Then, with a soft sound that was neither growl nor purr, but something uniquely hers, Maple turned and loped back toward the forest. At the edge of the trees, she paused, looking back once at the children who had become an unexpected part of her world. "She's saying goodbye," Lily whispered, a hint of sadness in her voice. But Emma shook her head, understanding dawning like the rising moon. "Not goodbye. She's just reminding us that she's always there, watching from the wild places. She'll be there when we need her, and we'll be here when she needs us." Maple seemed to nod, her majestic silhouette outlined against the dark forest for one more heartbeat before she melted into the shadows of her domain. From the cabin, Miss Patterson's voice called them in for dessert. Rising from their stone perch, the Spencer girls walked hand in hand across the moonlit yard toward the warm light spilling from the windows of their ancestral home. Behind them, unseen but ever present, the spirit of the wilderness, embodied in a tawny mountain lion with amber eyes, maintained its ancient vigil, a silent guardian of lost children who had finally found their way home. The forest whispered its secrets to the night wind, tales of courage and connection, of boundaries crossed and understanding found, and somewhere in those whispers was the story of two orphaned girls and their unlikely protector, a testament to the enduring bond between humanity and the wild heart of the natural world, a bond that once formed could never truly be broken. Dear listeners, we hope that Emma and Lily's journey with Maple has touched your heart. If you want to experience more emotional stories like this one, subscribe to our channel, leave a like and share in the comments what moved you the most. Remember, each story we share is a reminder that even in our darkest moments, unexpected guardians can help us find our way home.